Welcome to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for downloading episode 45. In the fifth round of the Premiership, Sales smash Gloucester, and Jonny May is making himself very hard to ignore. You're listening to the England Rugby Pod, the rugby podcast that believes England will win the World Cup in 2019. Hi guys, welcome back. Apologies for our brief absence. It's been a busy couple of weeks, not least of which the weekend where we had promised you an episode. We were too drunk, weren't we, Dan?
We'd had a few too many, a few too early, I think.
We said, right, should we have a few beers and then do the episode, or should we just do the episode first? We were like, no, we'll have a couple of beers first, we'll be fine. And then, I'm gonna say 12 pints later, but it's probably more like 3. We decided we were far too drunk to do the episode. So apologies, but we're here now. Obviously, got a bit of backtracking to do, but as we've said in the past, we're the England Rugby Pod. We're not the English Domestic League Rugby Pod. So we will cover what we've missed, or some of what we've missed, but obviously the focus will always be on the England boys and what it means for the England national side. Let's crack on. I mean, it's been another interesting couple of weeks of domestic rugby. It's been some more shock results. Obviously, 2 weeks ago, it's kind of yesterday's news now, but the most recent games, there were some pretty big results. Bath obviously beat Wasps. That's a good result for them.
Yeah.
The big one was probably Sale.
Oh, they destroyed Gloucester.
Absolutely
ripped them apart.
Hammered them. I mean, that's embarrassing if you're Gloucester, right?
Yeah, that is embarrassing. The stats were quite interesting on that one, though. Like, Gloucester, I think, had more possession. It was just a weird score compared to the stats. But actually, I'm actually going to contradict what you just said a couple of minutes ago, because there were a couple of points I wanted to bring up, if you don't mind, before we crack on. Just rugby as a whole. Firstly, if you're Welsh and you see a thing with a big mouth that's a bit bitey, don't stroke it, okay? It's not a sheep. Leave it be. They can be pretty dangerous. What the hell was Scott Baldwin thinking? Stroking a lion before a match. And the second one, which is actually quite important, Professor Alison Pollock with her team have once again sort of piped up. I'm not sure if it was her last time, saying that rugby, that you should ban tackling within schools up until age 17, I believe. Yeah. Now, there's a few parts about this. Firstly, from what I understand, her sort of research and data is nowhere near as far as she's making out. It's been criticised quite a lot. So it's a big shout without that. Secondly, I had an interview where she said it should be banned in schools, but not for clubs at that age. So I don't understand why kids suddenly play club rugby are less at threat than the school rugby kids, if that's the theory. And thirdly, everyone's been open for debate and has been fairly respectful to her because of, she's a professor, she's quite smart. So I mean, we'll show a level of respect and just say, Professor Pollock, fuck off. Leave our game alone, for God's sake. You can find data for anything. Where are we going to go with this? Are we going to say that kids can't run because if they run, they're more likely to fall over and break an arm than they are if they're walking? There's more to it than just that. This is our game. What the game gets from you. You can't just completely discount a sport. It's pathetic. I'm sorry to say that. I'm sure I'll get criticised for saying it, but 100% stand by it. It's absolutely fucking pathetic.
Mate,
Leave it alone.
I'd be surprised if any of our listeners would disagree with you, given that they're all clearly rugby fans. If they're not, I'm not sure why they're listening. But no, I obviously completely agree with you. But looking at it from a less emotional point of view, how about the simple fact that if you take a bunch of kids and you tell them that all they can do is play touch rugby, and then at 17, when these days at 17-year-olds, a lot of them are practically fully grown at the age of 17. You get some guys are playing professional rugby at the age of 17. Not many, mind, but there are a few. If you suddenly say to them when they're basically fully grown men, right, now you can tackle each other, you're telling me that there aren't going to be more injuries then?
Oh, it's going to be mayhem. Think of George North, age 17.
Well, exactly.
That was an absolute machine.
So
And
ridiculous to say that and more importantly than any of this, it's an individual's right to choose. Obviously, I'm not talking about the young kids, but their parents. The parents are responsible. If they want to side with the professor and they want to say that their kids can't play rugby, then they can do that.
Yeah.
Why make a decision for everybody? There's just no need for it. No school forces kids to play rugby, unless it was Wellington when I went there.
I was going to say that. Let's hold off on that. I think if you schools it is compulsory, but I'm sure if parents had that anti it, there could be an exception put into place, or you'll know that before you join the school. It's pathetic. Yes, of course, we're not saying let's look at ways we can protect sort of kids, adults, anyone playing rugby. But let's not change the whole fucking game because some professor just decides, who clearly has no knowledge of rugby whatsoever, has no knowledge about the culture of rugby, about the game as a whole, but suddenly decides this is what she wants to happen.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, she's looking for her little moment of fame, isn't it? Her little moment in the media, and she's got it. And once again, it'll get brushed off.
Yeah, well, I understand actually, which, have massive sympathy for, but I understand her son may have been injured in a school match or something. And it's become it's maybe become a bit of a mission of hers, but without any real facts. I mean, you can't, I remember when I was younger getting really quite badly hurt on a bike because, I fell off, I was going too quick. We're not going to stop kids riding their bikes now, are we?
Well, and I remember when I was young, wanting to go and help the builders out next door and picking up a sledgehammer and smashing my hand with it. What are you going to say, that kids aren't allowed to play with sledgehammers anymore?
That's something I may agree with, if I'm honest, but
But no, in all seriousness, it's ridiculous to like you say, look, hearts go out to her if her son was injured, if it's serious, that's a horrible thing, and I get, going on a campaign to try and prevent that sort of thing from happening in the future. But in all honesty, the way to prevent it from happening in the future is not to ban it and just risk worse injuries later on. It's to look at how did it happen and what can be done to prevent that happening in the future. There's so many things in life that we could just get rid of, in order to make things safer. We could say, right, ban cars because cars are more dangerous than pedestrians walking. It's clearly not going to happen. So I think let's move on and let's just say to her that you've had your moment, you've said your piece, time to pipe down and go and concentrate on some other campaign. Yeah,
go and cure a disease or something.
Exactly. So anyway, maybe good
she
digression.
Can cure my cough.
That would be good, mate. That would be good. It would be good for the listeners as well because Dan is alive and well, but sounding somewhat different to usual.
It's apologies if I come across wrong. I'll just start coughing out. Just a bit of a hurty throat at the moment.
Anyway, good digression. But let's move back onto what's been going on. So just quickly to go back to that Sale game. The fact that you've just told me that the stats show that Gloucester had more possession, I mean, that just makes it worse, right?
Yeah, I don't. So I've watched the highlights of that game, but I'd like to see it in more detail. And yes, sort of Sale. I mean, Gloucester threw, I think there were 3 interception tries in that.
Yeah.
Fair enough. 2 of them were as Gloucester were chasing the game a bit more. So you're a bit more, you're a bit looser in the play. But how the score came like that was just ridiculous. I mean, one of those where nothing goes right, but also, I mean, to leak that many points is unforgivable.
It is, and it's got to be a worry because you can't just put that down to a bad day at the office.
No, I don't think you can. I think it's too much.
So, it'd be interesting to see what they come back. I mean, inevitably they'll come out next weekend and go and put on some record score against whoever it is they've got at the weekend, and we'll all be scratching our heads again, going, "Well, what the hell was that against Sale?" But yeah, they've definitely got a lot to prove, I think, in their next game, and rightly so, because I think you've got to answer your critics in that, and the fans as well. You're not happy if you're paying quite a lot of money for season tickets and regularly going and watching and to see performances like that.
Yeah, from a sort of the England point of view, I'm just trying to think. Gloucester don't really have anyone sort of there or thereabouts at the England squad, except of course Billy Twelvetrees, who should be captain of England. But other than him,
slash coach, yeah,
slash coach slash Lions.
Didn't
coach
he
and
throw
captain.
one of those interception passes?
I think he threw a couple of them possibly, but he was certainly guilty for one.
He definitely owes you something for all this support you're giving him, because I'm not sure he's getting it from anyone
Billy,
else.
you would not repaying me as much as I'd hoped for this one. But yeah, he doesn't. But looking at Sales, so Denny Solomona got a couple.
Yeah.
McGuigan on the wing, he scored a few. He's looking like quite a solid winger. I think we're getting a bit into the danger territory of wingers at the moment, because every week we've got a new winger who's good enough to play for England, and we're forgetting that we've put about 15 names in the hat.
Mate, well, look, that's a perfect place to then move on to the next game, which was Leicester beating Exeter. And despite what I've been saying, I think every week since he was dropped, Jonny May's becoming hard to ignore, isn't he?
He has to start. He has to. He's the best. He's the best winger in England at the moment.
Whose spot does he take?
Well, so possibly, I mean, because don't forget Brown is injured at the moment. Mike Brown's injured, so the chat of him sort of starting at fullback may be gone. So if you look at Watson now, I think you'd probably go Noel and May. Noel's played quite well. Elliot Daly, fair enough, he's only recently back, but probably hasn't had the time to prove himself. But Jonny May, the form he's in at the moment, he's so hard to not start.
I have to agree. I have to agree. So I think, he's definitely one, and yet another winger, but one that perhaps, he was involved in the training camp. So Eddie Jones clearly is still looking at him very closely. So he's probably got a very good chance of being included. Obviously, Denny Solomona, as we know, wasn't included in the camp, and obviously was sent home with Manu from the last one. So possibly his shot for the time being has gone anyway. But I think you're right.
I think he's probably on hold, yeah.
So what do we think about Elliot Daly? I mean, I guess Elliot Daly hasn't done a huge amount for Wasps. Wasps have had a couple of pretty poor results recently, but also, he hasn't really kind of been one of the guys that's stood out. Do we think he's just, like you said,
he's playing in the centres, isn't he?
Well, so this is it. So if we look at our centres and we say, because is he playing 12 or 13?
13.
13, right. So we need a 13. You've got JJ, who's not in the best of form. So I think that he's definitely one to consider. Ben Teo obviously is someone to consider. And again, whilst we're on the Leicester Exeter game, of course, there's good
old Slady.
Yeah, Henry Slade, who's looking really good at the moment. So there's three, I would say, very different players there who are in with a shout, and probably the ones with their hands highest in the air as far as that 13 shirt goes. If we assume that 10-12 will stay the same with Ford Farrell, what would you want to see? If we're assuming Ford Farrell, what do you want to see at 13? Who do you want to see at 13? Sorry,
that's a good question. I would maybe go between these two, one on the bench and one starting, Daly and Teo.
Okay.
Because Daly can cover, but then Henry Slade's playing so well, he's so hard to leave out. But just at the moment, because Teo adds something that perhaps the others don't quite add.
Yeah.
And Daly's just got that versatility to cover
my only issue with Henry Slade, with a Ford Farrell 10-12 partnership, is that he's another playmaker, which in theory sounds great, but are you in danger of having too many playmakers and not the sort of the sort of the finishers, if you like?
The grunt work.
I kind of, as much as anything else, it's about putting doubt in the mind of the opposition. I think if you make it too obvious what's going to happen because of the team that you set up, that you put out, then it makes it much harder. Makes it much easier for the opposition if it's obvious what they're going to do. By having options, by having like a Teo who we know he can run lines, but we also know he's aggressive and the crash ball on the defensive side of his game and everything else. He's someone who offers something very different. So if you've got a sort of a Ford Farrell Teo, you've got options. and the opposition don't know what option you're going to take. And obviously both Ford and Farrell have the ability to make a split-second, last-minute decision about what to do and really kind of keep the opposition on their toes. I almost feel like if you go 3 playmakers across the middle, you don't have that impact player. So it's all well and good when you create the perfect gap and someone goes through it, because these guys are all capable of running lines and breaking through gaps. But I don't know. Is it a risk?
It's whichever way we go, it's a risk. That's the problem, because although Henry Slade, for example, if you play him, is not likely to sort of maybe smash through a half gap like a Tio can, he does create gaps, and he has been for Exeter. He has been sort of really creating these gaps and running through them himself, and then just with moments of magic setting up tries. So it's about getting through those holes in very different ways. It's an interesting one, really interesting one, because, you know, JJ has been given a bit of a hard time because of, you know, his form at the moment hasn't been great. But then a couple of weeks back, the try he scored for Bath was absolutely beautiful and showed JJ at his best. But then defensively,
that's the problem at the moment, isn't it? He's not. Eddie Jones loves to talk about players who don't have the complete game. You know, and the wingers are a prime example. You know, scoring tries for fun, but not necessarily the rest of the. You know, of what's required to play at the highest level. And I feel like JJ is slightly fallen into that trap of just not quite having the complete game at the moment. You know, he's missing a lot of tackles, often resulting in points against. I mean, there's time. There's still time. He was obviously left out of the training camp, which doesn't mean a huge amount. You know, there's no question he's on Eddie Jones's radar. He's a Lion. So I think he's only got, you know, he can only prove Eddie Jones wrong and force him to change his mind. But he needs to start thinking about doing that sharpish if he wants to feature in the autumn.
Yeah, definitely. And look, we have, truth is, we have no idea where Eddie Jones's head is at, and I don't think we ever will.
No, he's got a tough, but he's also got a tough decision, because if we just not briefly go back, we're there. But looking at this 13, for example, if we're right and Tio, Slade, Daly are the 3 in contention, any one of those starting you'd be reasonably happy with, as long as it worked. You know, if it doesn't work, then all eyes on Eddie Jones, who made the wrong decision. So you say those 3. I mean, JJ's still going to be in there, right? Yeah, well, obviously, yeah, and I'm sure there are others that we're not thinking of right now. We say it every week, but it is good for English rugby that there is so much strength in depth. It's just frustrating to not be able to put a side down on paper and be absolutely 100% confident that this is the team. But, you know, that's what this next sort of, I guess, 6 to 12 months is all about. That then in the sort of the last 18 months or so before the World Cup, we're in a position to be saying, right, this is the team actually, and then watch them develop over the course of that period of time, so that hopefully come 2019, you know, they're favourites and they go and they do the job.
Yeah, that's the plan, and I'm sure things will start becoming a bit more apparent, especially as England haven't actually played together since Six Nations. Obviously, they toured Argentina, but we mean a full strength England with the Lions. So it is actually hard to see where we're at, because we've had so many, because of the nature of the Lions and that Argentina tour. There have been so many new people introduced into the fold, who potentially we're looking at as England players, but we need to suddenly realise that there's a limit to how many can be in a squad, in an elite player squad, in a match day squad.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it'll be interesting to start seeing where those boundaries are with regards to the players and numbers, because, I mean, I know following that try that Gloucester scored a couple of weeks back, actually, guess who scored it? Probably try of the season.
Yeah,
my man Billy 12 threes, my man Billy T.
Yeah, I'm not convinced he was the most important piece in that particular puzzle.
All I'm saying is, without him, there's no try. Fair enough. Henry Trinder might have done a little bit of work for it, but is he a potential? Is he a potential centre? I mean, his whole career has been marred with injury, but he can do some moments of magic. I don't think he's there yet. And I think he needs to start doing that week in, week out.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Moments of magic are great to watch, but they're not going to get you into the international setup, especially not in the build up to a World Cup. But if you can start linking them up with constantly playing at a very high level, playing very well and making minimal mistakes, and then you throw in the odd bit of magic as well, then that changes things. So yeah, he's another one. I think he's got it all to play for.
Yeah, but he really does have to. I mean, the others we're talking about probably thereabouts. I think Henry Trindo's a good, probably 6 months away from solid performances week in, week out.
Right, let me ask you something. Ben Curry's chip through, his dink over the top, his crossfield kick. What the fuck?
It's too good, isn't it? Do you know what? It didn't even occur to me when they. On the commentary when they're like, "Oh, and Ben Curry crossfield kick," I was just like, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, hang on. Ben Curry did that."
Well, I just thought it must be some new fly half, also called Ben Curry. Yeah, coincidence.
Yeah.
But yeah, crazy. Fair play to him. Sometimes you see the forwards decided to put boot to ball, and you just kind of think, "Oh God." But yeah, it was perfectly weighted. It was a sweet kick. I mean, I guess top class. Back row, forward, particularly flankers, may well have spent a lot of their younger days playing in the backs. It's not massively dissimilar to maybe a centre in your early career, and so maybe he used to be a kicker, but it was cheeky. I liked it, perfectly weighted.
Age 18 in the Premiership to do that takes some
punchy.
Takes some confidence and to pull it off takes some skill.
I think it's the sort of thing as well where a lot of coaches would not be overly impressed by it, and it's something I think Eddie Jones would quite like.
Yeah,
I think he'd
loves
say,
it when it
don't
happens.
do it again ever, but awesome.
Or if you do it again, make sure it works again, because the second it doesn't work, you're out.
Well, exactly. Yeah, that's kind of his thing. Yeah. So that was pretty interesting. Newcastle topped the table, first time in 17 years that they found themselves at the top of the table. Admittedly, as it happened, they were with a game in hand, but nevertheless, they are second on points difference. No, on score, try difference or whatever it is, but equal points with top of the table. So they're doing pretty well.
Yeah, they've had a great start to the season. They've won some good games. I don't think they'll be the top four.
It's a big ask. It's definitely a big ask. But you think back when Exeter suddenly went from being just that side that came up into the Premiership and was expected to go back down to being right up there and in amongst it, and without ever really going out and getting superstars or anything, and they still don't. I mean, they do have a few of them now, but do you know what I mean? That's not their thing. Like they're not like a Saracens.
No, and it's got to be like we're saying. So they've got Wilson, who obviously toured at 6 with England against Argentina. Now, as we're saying, like back row is quite open for debate. This is the time for him to really put his hand up, because when your team's playing well, it's easier for yourselves to play well.
Yeah, and a light is very much shone, isn't it, on all the performances?
Yeah.
So yeah,
and he has been playing well. So will that help him and help him be in and around that England squad?
Quite possibly. I mean, what are we looking at back row now? So look, Nathan Hughes is looking pretty secure at number 8 with Billy out again.
Yeah, Billy out for a while. So Nathan Hughes realistically number 8. If we lost Nathan Hughes,
I don't know.
Who would we play at 8?
I don't know.
We'd struggle, right?
I mean, I'm sure we would find an 8, but or would we just play 3 flankers?
But saying Sam Simmons had played well for Exeter. I mean, but he's young, he's new, he's only proven over a few games. So let's not even go down that route right now.
Well, who was it that Eddie brought in when Billy got injured? Who did he bring in for the training camp? Jack Clifford. So Jack Clifford would probably be the next.
Is he an international 8?
I mean, he's done it before. Probably not, but if you're looking at the kind of the order, that's probably somewhere that there isn't. We've become slightly spoilt by the fact that there seems to be about 8 people for every position, in the backs and various other positions. But yeah, the back row, it doesn't have that that same strength in depth. And yet there still is, there still is a good range, good selection of players. I mean, if we look out on the flanks, obviously, you've still got the likes of Haskell not included. You've still got Robshaw with the experience. But then you've got the Curry brothers, although Ben's the only one currently involved. But I believe it was Tom.
I thought it was Tom.
I may get confused. Which one went to Argentina?
Tom went to Argentina.
So I think they've swapped. So I think it's Ben now that's involved then.
Those two confused me so much. I'm not even convinced there's two of them.
We said it in the last episode. Curry. It's just Curry. So Curry's involved. He can play in both positions, potentially. You've obviously got what's his name?
Underhill.
Yes, Sam Underhill.
Sam Underhill,
who's looking like a beast at the moment.
He's looking like he's putting his hand up to be a starter.
So there are definite options on the flank, and I think the likes of Haskell and Robshaw probably should start worrying a little bit.
Yes, yeah, I think Haskell especially. Haskell's been obviously he left out of that training camp. Whether that was just because he hasn't been playing much, I'm not sure. But I think now's the time where people from the back row, like we're saying with Wilson as well at 6, people from the back row are going to start to need to sort of cement these positions because there's a lot of potentials, a lot of people putting their hands up.
And there's obviously also the guys in the second row who can play in the back row, which we won't go into it again because we've done that probably to death for now. But Marrow and Courtney Laws can both play in the back row.
And you can't leave those guys out at the moment because they are absolutely awesome.
Yeah, so there'll be pressure from there as well, I think, with a view to making sure that everyone. I feel like they're the two to start in the second row, to be honest. But George Cruz is obviously just back or about to be back from injury. So we'll see. We'll see how that one pans out. Moving on to the front row, the big talking point, probably Kyle Sinkler. He's had his moment in the limelight on this podcast, but slightly overshadowed this weekend by his eye gouging incident. What do you think? Did you see it?
I don't think it was intentional. It's hard to tell. And actually, as of today, he's just been given a 7-week ban.
Yeah.
Which means he's out for at least the first 2, realistically, the whole autumn internationals. I don't think there was any intention there. I think it was maybe a bit reckless play, something that happens. But I genuinely don't believe there was any sort of negative or malicious intent.
You'd be crazy in this day and age, wouldn't you, to do it intentionally? Knowing
yeah, of course you would.
Knowing what can happen. I know that they brought this up in the in the sort of the post games this weekend, whatever it was called, the rugby highlights on 5 or whatever it's called, and Flats was saying that players get fired up and in the moment they don't know what's going, they don't know what they're doing. But I'm not sure I believe that. I mean, he would probably know more having been there, but nevertheless, I feel like the way the professionalism that goes into this sport now. Yeah, tempers flare, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem like the sort of thing that anyone.
I don't think. I think Flats, as much as anything, when you listen to him, he's clearly very loyal to his fellow professionals. Yeah. He does back them up well. I think he's giving a. But I think he's playing devil's advocate as much as anything. Flats is actually, in my mind, a brilliant sort of pundit, and he does tend to sort of give all angles so you can see it from the different areas. But yeah, these guys are professionals. If you're going in and you intentionally eye gouge, you deserve everything you get. I think if you look at Sinkler's 7-week ban, which they normally say the minimum is 12-week, that shows that no one believes it to be intentional, and it was just a sort of a mistake on his part to however that would be. But yeah, and I believe that to be true.
Fair enough. Just something I wanted to mention, kind of based on this. I've been keeping an eye on what's going on. The Metro,
as in the paper,
as in the newspaper. For those not in London, that's like a freebie London newspaper. It's just London, I think, isn't it?
I thought they did it in Bristol as well, but yeah.
Well, we'll call it.
I know what you mean.
We'll call it the London one anyway. So their headline for this was another blow for British and Irish Lions boss Eddie Jones as Kyle Sinkler's hit with big a big ban.
Okay. Their rugby reported, go away, mate, get someone new. Yeah.
Like, seriously? How is that? One, how is it gone out at all? And two, why is it still there?
So
15 hours ago.
Whoever wrote that piece that must have been misinterpreted. An editor must have changed that, because I can't believe anybody writing about rugby is writing that.
Richard Hookham, whoever you are, if you're listening, and you should be, because if you're writing about rugby, you clearly need to learn more about it. You need to do your research, my friend, because Eddie Jones is the England boss, not the British and Irish Lions boss.
Maybe he's been ambitious for 2020. Yeah,
maybe. Well, if he knows something that we don't, get in touch. We'll tell you at the end how to do it. Get in touch, let us know, and we'll give you an opportunity to defend yourself. But I suspect more likely an error has been made, and I shall be keeping an eye out to see when it's corrected.
Fair enough. And you stay on top of them. Do not let them get away with that.
I won't, mate. I won't. And I suspect that the Metro is very concerned about what the England Rugby Pod thinks.
Yeah, I'm sure they are.
They're actually owned by the Mail.
Are they?
Yeah, same people.
Oh, for God's sake! I used to read the Metro quite a lot. No,
anyway,
I feel sick with myself.
Where are we? Are we done?
I think so. I think I need to go get myself a lens sip and lay down with my hot water bottle, aka my dog.
Some oxygen, perhaps.
Yeah, and be able to maybe clear my throat and nasal and start learning how to breathe again would be useful. Sounds
like a plan, mate. Sounds like a plan. All right, well, guys, look, thanks again for joining us. Apologies for our tardiness this week. We will be back on Tuesday next week, hopefully. That's the plan. And we'll obviously bring you some coverage from this week's games. And, if there's any updates from the England camp, we'll let you know about what's going on there as well. As always, please, if you haven't already subscribed, go to iTunes, subscribe. It just means that you never miss an episode. If you want to get in touch with us, let us know what you think. It's at England Rugby Pod on all social media, but Twitter's probably the best bet. You can get in touch with us via email, englandrugbypod@gmail.com, the website www.englandrugbypod.com. Smoke signals, maybe. I don't know. There's just get in touch. Let us know what you think, and thanks, obviously, for listening. Rate us, review us. Morse code, another one. Yeah, great. Errors in the Metro. Keeping an eye out for those. So. But yeah, guys, really appreciate your support. Please keep it up, and let your friends and family know. Get them involved. Get them listening.
And Professor Pollock, I'm sorry I told you to fuck off, but if you've got a cure to my cough, I'd love to hear about it.
Sounds good.
Thanks for listening, guys.